Ladies and gentlemen, we have quite a fair lot of gentlemen amongst us here today. A warm welcome to all of you here. This is the second webinar that we are having today in the series of Enigma of Cancer, which has been the Indian Cancer Society Cancer Sahyog's series of webinars, which perforce we have had to get into the digital world because of the COVID restrictions that have been in place. And let me tell you, like they say, for in every calamity, there is an opportunity. This is the opportunity that we have really grasped. And it's been a learning experience for all of us to go digital out of the blue. None of us knew anything about how to function all these with these webinars and things like that. But slowly and steadily, we are learning. Our first one had started with a lot of chaos, which I think this time is looking much better. But even amidst that chaos, we got somebody to say that he loved the North Indian women chattering. So I think that was really quite a wonderful comment for all of us who had, the greeting smiles on our faces and were saying a hello to everybody around. Because you'll realize many of us volunteers who used to meet so regularly, we are just not able to meet. We can only talk on phone, and there's nothing like being able to talk to someone and see someone in front of you to whom you're talking. So this is giving us volunteers also a new experience where we are able to connect with each other over the webinars. So a warm welcome to us two leading speakers here, the two doctors who are not here right now, but I can understand because of their workload, and this is the time when the OPD is finishing or about to start or something like that. So they all said they would join in closer to the time when they are required there. But all the same, I would like to welcome Dr. Tapaswini Pradhan from Fortis Hospital. She's the senior consultant there, who will be talking about the head and neck cancers. And then we have Dr. Ravi Mehrotra, who is the CEO of Cancer Research Organization. He is going to be talking about pollution in the form of the environment and tobacco related, how the smoke affects us. And regarding the smoke aspect of it, we have a very well-known, renowned Sufi singer, Sonam Kalra, who will be telling us about how it has affected her family also. The pollution which is in the air and the pollution which is caused by tobacco. So these are the speakers, and we also have our survivors and the caregivers. There is Kamal Srinivasan, who is one of us, one of our volunteers itself, who will be talking about her experience. And there is Vivek Tomar, who lost his wife to cancer and was a wonderful caregiver for her. So he will talk to us about the caregiver's aspect of it, how he helped her to come across and face all this problem that she underwent all those years. And just for your information, we are now streaming live on Facebook also. These seminars that Cancer Sahyog organizes are actually done for twofold reasons. One is to spread the awareness of any topic of current interest or any type of cancer which is not very well known and people get to know more about it. And one of the other prime reasons is it works as a fundraiser for Sahyog to be able to garner funds for the medical treatment of the cancer patients. So this is our fundraising webinar where I request all of you to please help us out in this mission of ours. We'll have the Director Sahyog also talking to you about this a little later, and I'll let her fill in the gaps of the number of people that we've taken on in the past year and the amount that we have spent. We hope we'll be able to get at least 50% of what we did last year. We know we are all going through hard times, but somewhere down the other, we really have to help each other out. So I wonder if Jyotsna has joined in yet or not. Jyotsna, are you there? Jyotsna is not able to connect to us. She is in the UK. She's our vice chairman of the Indian Cancer Society. And she is the one who was going to talk about basically ICS. And I was going to hand her over the mic now to take on to carry forward the proceedings hereafter. Priya, were you able to get in touch with her? Sunita, I think then thereafter, then you only take over and carry on. When Jyotsna comes and she connects, she's having poor connectivity in UK. She's not here in India, but she's having this problem there. So as and when she's able to connect, she will be able to address you all also. Meanwhile, I'll hand you over to the moderator of the day. That's Sunita Gupta here with us.
Good evening, everybody. Very warm welcome to all of you. It's nice to see all of you, even though per force we had to mute you. Just a few ground rules before we start. We will be taking up questions to the doctors, not of a personal nature, but general questions pertaining to what they have spoken about. So if you have any questions, please put them on the chat box, and Sandhya will be noting them down, and we will, time permitting, we'll try to take at least 1 or 2 questions after the doctors. However, if we are not able to do so, please bear with us. You'll definitely get a reply by email later on. Then second request is that, you know, when we used to have our seminars, the speakers and everybody actually loves the taliyon ki awaaz, isn't it? It's so rewarding. So even though you are muted, there is a chat box that side which has got icon of a clapping. So kindly do that since you can't clap anyway. So that's about it. And as Renu has told you, this is a fundraising effort. Unfortunately, the corona doesn't get rid of cancer. The cancer patients are still suffering and they definitely need help. So this is our very small effort to gather funds for this purpose. So please open up your hearts and your wallets, digitally or check-wise. We are happy to welcome anything. Everybody will get a receipt. Please save this screen, which is on the screen just now. Please do save it and try to help out as you can. Anuj, I think that's enough. That's our sponsors. We are thankful to all of them.
I am having oatmeal.
Can we please mute some gentleman who is very excited?
Okay. Hi, Mummy. Hi, sweetie pie, Krishna. I want kismis. I want kismis. Okay. Okay. Baby kismis.
So, to start the proceedings,
okay,
we have got the first person who will be talking to us, Kamal. Kamal, I hope you're there. I think she has not been able to log in as well, but just for this eventuality, we have got her recording with us. As Jyotsna always says, statistics are nothing but millions of tears wiped away. Let me introduce you to one very statistic, who's our own very brave and positive volunteer, Mrs. Kamal Srinivasan. She had Hodgkin's lymphoma in year 2000 and recovered. And after 2 years, she joined Indian Cancer Society. She's always been cheerful and enthusiastic. Many of us didn't even realize it when she got tongue cancer in 2008. She was given choice of 30% of her tongue to be removed or brachytherapy. She braved the long treatment with help of patient, doctors, and her positive attitude. An attitude which says, life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. So Anuj, please put on Kamal's audio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've gone through cancer 3 times. In 2000, Hodgkin's lymphoma, 2008, squamous cell carcinoma in the left arterial of my tongue, and 2010 in the right arterial. I had a lesion in the left arterial of my tongue. I went to RR and it turned white, it kept increasing, and after some time it thickened. And doctors said it is only precancerous. And when it became 10 millimeter in size, doctors panicked and biopsy was decided. Biopsy was done. It was squamous cell carcinoma. My husband was shattered. I have seen children, young people having cancer. They were just starting their life. And here, I have lived my life, enjoyed my life fully, and my responsibilities are over. So, I remain calm. MRI and ultrasound was done. Both confirmed nodes seen. It means 20 to 30% of survival rate. My husband, reading this, was in shock, but I told him, PET is yet to be done. Then when we went to get the PET report, as we got into the room, I suddenly panicked. I told him, you go and get the report. So after reading the report, he showed me the thumbs up sign, and so PET saved me. Then we went to IRCH, met the radiotherapy doctor. He told me that your tumor is small, so we will do brachytherapy. In this, implants are fixed on top of the tongue and taken out of the chin, and the radiation is passed. I was okay for some time. Then suddenly I noticed a black patch in the right arterial of my tongue. I was back to IRCH. This time surgeon also examined me and he pronounced that it is time for surgery. This time also it was squamous cell carcinoma. Because my husband got depressed. But seeing me, he became all right. My doctor who did the brachy told me, Madam, you will have to get the brachy again or face the knife. I was puzzled. Why? He told me that more of your tongue should have been cut. So I chose brachy because otherwise 30% of my tongue would have been cut. What enabled me to go through all these cancers successfully is I sought the advice of doctor promptly, and yoga, walks, pranayama, meditation, positivity, and of course I watched all the movies, comedy serials, and Tom and Jerry. I thoroughly enjoyed. All these things made me feel very good. It's not that I didn't feel low, but I thought, is worrying going to help me? And then I was all right. I was cheerful, and so all household is cheerful. With God's blessings, I am keeping a good health till now. And I know that Every day or even moment is a bonus for me. Past is over, future is unknown, but present is a gift. Thank you.
Isn't that a really wonderful lady? So I am waiting for all those claps on the icon. Mrs. Jyotsna Goval has just joined us. I would request her to say a few words for us, please. Jyotsna.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I got in a little late. I wasn't anticipating that I would have to put in so many digits into that little box to get in on time. Please forgive me the delay. But basically, I think the task assigned to me today is to tell you a little bit about ICS and our role in the world of tobacco control and of what it means to have a cancer related to a substance which can very easily be avoided. So let me tell you that ICS Delhi has been involved with tobacco control for a very long time. We had been going at it in 97, 98, 99, where we were talking to people about the dangers of tobacco and so on. And suddenly we found that there was a global movement which was really so encouraging to us. So in 2002, when India was one of the first countries to sign up for the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, Indian Cancer Society was also one of the first NGOs to sign up on the same thing. So when there was a parliamentary committee, a subcommittee of the Raj Sabha, which was asked to examine the laws of other countries so that India could have its own tobacco laws, we were asked to depose in front of that by WHO. Many of you will remember the lovely Vineet Gill, who used to come to our functions and who was always a great source of support to us. She packed us off to the Raj Sabha and said, go and talk to them about what it means to have oral cancers or cancers of the oral cavity. So we were there to talk about it, and to obviously we carried some weight in what we were doing. So we were very happy when chewed tobacco was also added to the list of tobacco products which were going to come under the Control of Tobacco Products Act. We then went on to keep with our awareness programs, and when hookah bars became the fashion, I think many of us went out to schools and tried to convince children that this was not some harmless substance. We were shocked when they told us that there were hookahs in their parents' gardens, much in the same way as barbecues. So we extended the scope of our talks to parents as well. And we've been at it. Sunita is one of our tobacco warriors. She has been at various training programs with the WHO and with other international groups. And she has brought that program back to India, to us, and to the community around us. Now, we've been at this, as I said, since 1997. And it really saddened me when I read a report in the newspapers not so long ago that in India, at least 27% of all cancers would still be related to tobacco and to environmental pollution. I'm so glad that we are addressing this topic today, Sunita, and I know that everybody will benefit. We've heard the wonderful Kamal always smiling, always cheerful. So whoever is near her, is it Mr. Srinivasan? Please give her a big hug from me. Can we get back to the seminar? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jyotsna, for those wonderful words. You've always been a source of great confidence for all of us. So glad to see you, even from London. Our speaker today is Dr. Tapaswini Pradhan. She's a well-known doctor on TV as well as radio. At present, she is Senior Consultant, Head and Neck Oncosurgery at Fortis Cancer Institute. Earlier, she was at RGCI at BL Kapoor Hospital. Trained in the use of lasers, transoral robotic surgery, and endoscopic skull-based surgery. She has a passion to teach and is an avid orator, engaging herself in educating the public on ill effects of tobacco, prevention of cancer, and nutrition. She doesn't only give the technical bit of the surgery and treatment, but includes emotional support for patients and caregivers. She is an accomplished singer in Hindustani classical music and an award-winning painter as well, and a very devoted sitar player. In fact, she has been playing the sitar for us on the Cancer Survivor Day, which we used to hold earlier. When it rains, look for rainbows. When it's dark, look for stars. Dr. Tapaswini is definitely the star to look out for in rain or no rain. Dr. Tapaswini, over to you.
Thank you so much. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
Thank you so much, and greetings and namaskar to all of you. At the outset, I must thank the Indian Cancer Society for giving me this chance and opportunity to be here in your wonderful meeting, which I have always earnestly desired from my heart. Whenever I used to go for your meets, I used to really feel, can I come up one day on your stage and speak to all of you? And thanks, Madam Jyotsna, for making my dreams possible today. Madam Jyotsna, Madam Sunita, and Madam Sangeeta, and all of you. You've been really wonderful people, and I've really loved interacting with all of you. So today, I'll be giving a presentation on head and neck cancer, which is, of course, an Indian problem, and that's why it is called an Indian cancer. So it will be through a PPT, so we'll go on to the presentation. So philosophically speaking, cancer is about a journey which teaches us many things about ourselves. It really forces us to examine how we have been living all these years. Now, the three main factors which have influenced the rising incidence of cancer in our society has been our changing lifestyle, addictions, and our changing habits, and also the increasing life expectancy. Now, according to the National Cancer Registry, it is predicted that 1 in every 10 Indian will have cancer in their lifetime. So it is very important to know as to what these cancers are all about. And today, my talk would be dedicated to entirely to head and neck cancer. So I've titled it as Prevention to Cure. So let's see what head and neck cancer is all about. Now, if we look at the global picture, there are around 6.5 lakh cases all over the world, out of which India almost has 30% of the global head and neck. It's 20 to 30%. Almost 60% of the world's head and neck cancer occur in Asia, out of which 30% occurs in India. So you can see in the US, we have around 65,000, and the European countries and South American countries have 240,000, while India has almost the highest number, 150,000. And that's the reason why we call it as our major public health issue. It's the most common cancer in males, and it is the fourth most common cancer in females. And it is also seen that these cancers predominantly have a prevalence in people from the lower socioeconomic strata. But then what's the good which is hidden in this evil is that this is a highly preventable disease. Now let's look at the garden variety of head and neck cancers that we get in our country. That's a tongue cancer. That's a lip cancer. This is a cancer in the oropharynx, in the soft palate. It's a large, huge jaw tumor. Cancer of the lip again, and in the buccal mucosa. So that's the huge spectrum of, head and neck cancers that we get to see. Now, as I said, it is a highly preventable disease, and we realize 85% of the head and neck cancers are tobacco-induced. And what you see in this particular slide are the beautiful cultivation of the tobacco fields. And the strong link between tobacco and head and neck cancer, or tobacco and cancer per se, was documented way back in 1915. And it was the International Agency for Research on Cancer which designated tobacco as a potential carcinogen in 1986. So tobacco, either in the chewable form or in the smoked form, is a potential carcinogen. So in the head and neck area, strong link was found in the laryngeal cancers and also in the oral cancers. So patients or individuals who are heavy smokers, which means who smoke more than 20 cigarettes per day, are almost at a 25 times higher risk. And those who smoke and also drink alcohol are at a 38% risk. Now, the chances of falling prey to this cancer is highly dose dependent, which means the number of years that you have smoked and the number of packs or the number of packets of cigarettes that one has smoked over the years have actually contributed to how quick or how early the patient contracts this particular disease. Now, the alarming thing in our society is the early initiation into these habits. And it is seen that 15% of our population smoking are actually children in the age group of 13 to 15 years. So what's happening in the clinics, our patients have become younger and younger. So what we used to see in the 6th or the 7th decade, we now get to see in the 3rd or the 4th decade. So that's an early presentation. It's also early in the age that the patients have started presenting, but unfortunately, most of our patients would present in a very advanced stage. But if you look at the various causative factors, tobacco still stands at the lead, and it is at 85%, followed by alcohol, which is around 75 to 80%. Now, there are certain dietary factors, that is diet which is low in vitamin A, C, D, and also selenium, zinc, iron. Heavy consumption of frozen food, processed foods, barbecued foods, they have been contributed to the causation of cancer. Now, the viruses, a much talked about virus, and that's the human papilloma virus, Epstein-Barr virus, HIV virus, and the herpes virus have all been contributory to the causation of this particular disease. Exposure to various types of radiation, we talk about the ionizing and the non-ionizing radiation exposure, and people engaged in different professions. So there are certain professional hazards too. And now let's see who are our people. Too much of exposure to sunlight. We talk about the benefits of sunlight, but yes, if you have excessive exposure, that also is going to lead to different types of skin cancer. People engaged in or exposure to excessive diesel fumes, or those engaged in asbestos industry, exposure to paint and the chemicals like chromium, or to the sawdust and the wood industry, people engaged in the dye industry, or those, this is dry cleaning industry, silica dust, leather, tanning, and smoldering and welding. So all these people who are engaged into these professions are at a high risk of especially cancers in the sinuses and in the nasal cavity. Now, the irony of this situation is, though this area is quite amenable to visual inspection, yet most of our patients present to us in a very advanced stage. 70 to 80% of our population comes when the disease is advanced. Now, what and why? Why does it happen so? One is, of course, we would say there is a lot of factor, which is illiteracy and ignorance as one of the contribution to presentation in an advanced stage. The second factor that we figure out is the fear of disfigurement. People know that they have cancers, but they are very fearful of being operated upon because head and neck is such an area which cannot be hidden. This is a part of our body which remains exposed. So whenever we operate, there is some amount of disfigurement, though we try to be as close to what nature has given to us, but there is always some amount of disfigurement which the patients have to accept. The third reason why people come late is that they resort to various alternative treatments. And then there is financial constraint which people have, and there's lack of infrastructure. There are people who are in the remote part of our country who do not even have access to the medical care system. So various contributory reasons as to why patients come in a very advanced stage. But then awareness is a very key thing. So we should be aware of how oral cancers look like. So precancerous lesions, what one of our survivors who was talking about, Madam Srinivasan. So there are certain precancerous lesions in the oral cavity, which actually give us a cue that whether this individual needs to be on a very close follow-up. So you can see the various white patches in the oral cavity. The one that you see here is what we call as oral submucosal fibrosis. This is when people eat a lot of gutka, areca nut chewing. This is what happens in the oral cavity. And you get to see white patches in the oral mucosa. In the tongue, this is called leukoplakia. But when you have a speckled leukoplakia, you run a higher chance of this turning into cancer in a later stage. Lichen planus erythroplakia, which is a red, fiery looking red patch in the oral cavity, and a thick patch, which is what we call as a verrucous lesion. This is almost 100% conversion, which it will do in a near future in an individual. So these are lesions which are so very easily seen on a visual inspection. It's just that we need to generate more awareness among people that, yes, you should be watchful about these lesions. Now, there are ways in which the body tells us, like non-healing ulcers, not healing for around 10 to 14 days despite medications. You may have change in your voice. Change in your voice could be benign like this. They could be swelling in your cord, or they could be a small polypoidal lesion. But then when you do an endoscopic examination and the vocal cord shows a lesion like this cannot be ignored. This is malignancy. So whenever there is a change in voice, not responding to your treatment for around 4 to 6 weeks, it is high time that you should get yourself examined. Do not ignore. Then these are other lesions that we get to see in the oral cavity, which is actually the main the main proportion of head and neck cancers comes from the oral lesions. And that's why we should be very careful of what are the various predisposing factors for oral cancers. One of them is a poor orodental hygiene. Look at this, very poor orodental hygiene now leading to an ulcerative sort of a lesion. But when this lesion looks like this is something that you should not ignore. This is frank malignancy which has happened. Another very commonly what we get to see, people when they are stressed and you get some ulcer like this is called an aphthous ulcer. This is absolutely benign. This is innocuous. But if this turns into a lesion like this, you cannot just afford to sit back. This is a lip cancer. Now, a lesion like this over the tongue, a white patch with a surface which is quite irregular, this needs to be shown to a doctor, to an oncologist. And if this turns out to be a growth on the surface, this is cancer. So general awareness, increasing awareness is going to get people early in the disease. And that's going to also improve what we call our survival outcome. So if you appreciate this particular graph, you'll realize if people come early in the disease, the survival can be as high as around 80 to 94%. And as the disease advances, you find that the survival curve drops down to as low as around 40 to 50%. So the key is awareness. So that's going to get us to a better survival outcome. So prompt diagnosis and early treatment is going to promote better survival and also an improved quality of life. But there are many challenges that we face as surgeons, as head and neck cancer surgeons. We realize this, the anatomy of the head and neck is quite complex, and it lodges a lot of special organs like organs of olfaction, that is smell, the speech, then we have swallowing, and then dynamicity of the face. If you appreciate, face is so dynamic, your facial expression, smile, frowning, everything is shown up on your face. So you really have to handle all these dynamic structures when you are doing any sort of a surgery in the head and neck area. So the key for a good surgeon is always how we are able to restore the form and functionality. But if you look at the treatment of head and neck, it is a multidisciplinary approach. Since most of our patients come in an advanced treatment, they would always get multimodal treatment. Primarily, the head and neck cancers are actually surgical. They fall in the surgical domain, but then thereafter, they have to be seen by a radiation oncologist and also a medical oncologist. A key role, an extremely important key role, is formed by our onco-reconstructive team. So what we talked about, restoring the form and functionality, is his main work, and that's a most beautiful part of the head and neck surgery. At the end of the day, what does the patient think? So what are we going to give him after we do all this? And every outcome which is now being measured by every individual is his quality of life. So all these surgeries do look into restoring the integrity in the form and the function and the aesthetics. So speech, swallowing, mastication, and of course the individual appearance. And this is the order in which we set our priority. So to restore his speech and swallowing and mastication form, our major priority whenever we do our head and neck surgeries. But it has all been made because of the advancements which has occurred in our microvascular surgical techniques, which is actually in the plastic surgery. And that has enabled us the disfiguring surgeries to be made more aesthetically appealing. So what we call as transfers, free transfers. So we get individual tissues from the different parts of the patient's body to actually form that particular area. So a jawbone is being made from the bone from the leg. So that's a free flap, and that's made a lot of difference. And I'll show you certain examples. So a body has a lot of spare parts. So if you look at a car, it's got a lot of spare parts. So also in the human body, we can borrow tissues from different parts of the body, from the thigh, from the leg, then from the abdomen, from the shoulder, from the forearm. So all these areas come to our rescue whenever we have to do reconstruction of the head and neck. And that has actually brought forth a lot of aesthetics in head and neck. Looking at some examples, like when we do a tongue surgery. So this is a patient who had a tongue cancer, very advanced, resected, and she's just left with 1/4 of the tongue, and we reconstruct it with a flap which is borrowed from the forearm. And that's a free flap. So this free flap has come from the forearm, has made the remaining tongue, and see a tongue which is so beautifully constructed. And now we'll hear this lady speaking. Now, so the other is the jawbone. When we talk about tumors of the jawbone, so whenever there's a resection that interferes with the speech of the individual, swallowing, chewing, the shape of the face also gets altered, the support to the lip and the oral competence gets disturbed. But let's look at a beautiful example of a patient whom we had from, it's an international patient with a huge jaw tumor. And when this entire jaw is resected, how do we reconstruct? That's a challenge, and that's the tumor which has come out. And this was done with his leg bone, which we call it as a fibula, restructured to form the jaw. And this is how the jaw has been made. You can appreciate it on the X-ray, beautifully contoured, and he looked like this. So he sent another patient, a young patient who also had a similar tumor, resected, and he was quite smart enough. On this bone, we had placed in the implants, and on this implant, he could place his teeth, and he looks like this. So you can actually reconstruct the whole jaw and allow the patients to have a dental rehabilitation. And if you look at these individuals, you can never make out they ever went ahead with this sort of a major surgery and have been beautifully rehabilitated. If you look at the lip, let's look at the lip. This is a gentleman who was a tennis player, and this was a sunlight-induced cancer. And he had a cancer of the upper lip, which was resected. So only 1/4 of the lip was left behind, and see how beautifully the lip has been made. And this is how he looked after the surgery in the recovery period. And this is how we got the final result. This is another surgery which people refuse to, undergo, and that's when they have cancers in the voice box or the food passage. So after the resection of this tumor, voice becomes a major concern. How do we rehabilitate the voice? This is a process which is a US or a Swedish make, which is put in during the time of surgeries, and you would realize that the patient speaks so beautifully. And this was a gentleman who was a writer from Patna, and after the surgery, he was rehabilitated with a hands-free speech, and we can listen to his voice. And let's listen to his video. So if we just shut our eyes and listen to his voice, I don't think you can ever make out that he doesn't have a vocal cord. So sciences have advanced to such an extent that nothing is impossible. Now, the other fearful factor with head and neck cancers, rather with all cancers, is recurrences. 100% cure rate has never been possible in any of the cancers. Now, if we get our patients in advanced stage, we realize that the 5-year survival, despite all aggressive treatment, remains at 40 to 50%. And most of the head and neck cancers are, as we said, tobacco induced. These patients do require a regular and a constant surveillance, and 10 to 20% of them will develop another cancer in some other area. So a constant surveillance of all these patients is mandatory. And 40% of these patients have a tendency to recur after the first line. And sorry to say that 50% of them, they do have failures within 2 years. So nothing is to be blamed, but it is actually the biology of the cancer because of which we have all these failures. Now, if you look at this gentleman, he had cancers 5 times. So he has been with us since 2008, and you can see all his scars on his face. He has had cancers in both of his cheek, in his lip area, in the lower jaw. 5 times, I think he's got operated, but fortunately, he's showing all the scarred areas in his body. These are the various areas we have borrowed for reconstruction. but he still is a happy man because he's surviving. So 2008 to 2020, he is still walking strong. Now, a lot of advancements have also happened in our field, and that's robotics and technology driven advancements like the robo, the lasers. This is what you see is a laser machine, and this is what you see are the robotics. So this has happened over the last quarter of the 20th century. So better operating microscopes, endoscopes, and lasers have made a difference. Now look at this beautiful video of a laser resection being done on a vocal cord. So earlier, the vocal cords were all handled by our radiation oncologists, and that meant around 7 weeks of treatment. But now with the lasers coming in, we would appreciate that the hospital stay of the individuals has reduced to only 2 or 3 days. So it's as good as radiotherapy, but then the cost factor and also the besides the cost factor, which is much less with laser, patients have a better quality of life with laser resections. And it's a short stay. It is a 1 to 2 days of hospital stay, which means a lot for every individual. So you can see a beautiful cord, which is well healed after the surgery. That's robotics. Now, robotics we generally use for those areas which are inaccessible, which are part of the oral cavity, like the extreme part of the tongue where we cannot reach, which are instruments. That's where we use the robo. And the robo gives us a good 3-dimensional picture. And also it gives a beautiful view of the lesion and has a strong control. There are no tremors of the surgeon, and the resection is beautifully done. So that's how we do resection of the base of the tongue, what we say with the robo. And the great advantage with robotics is the rehabilitation of the patient is very fast, and they're able to take on to their oral feeds quite early. But at the end of the day, I think what everyone should love to know is how to prevent. So prevention, as we say, is better than cure. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So preventive measures in cancer eradication, that's the most inexpensive method of cancer control. So in a modern era, we've brought in a lot of comfort to our lives, but it has brought a huge baggage of lifestyle diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, digestive problems, and above all, cancers. So physical fitness is an essential component because sedentary work, sedentary lifestyle, undue stress, negative emotions, and scientifically, all these have been proven to cause this deadly disease. So what really happens when you are under a lot of stress? There are raised stress hormones, catecholamines, and cortisols. They have been known to produce cancer, induce cancer, and also it has the tendency to enhance the metastatic potential of this disease, thereby reducing the overall survival and also the quality of life of the individuals. So obesity is one factor which we see it's so much rampant in our country now. In fact, we are third in the picture, US leading the scenario, and we are at third. So what happens with obesity? See, look at the number of cancers which are actually just related with your body weight, what we call as BMI. So breast, esophagus, endometrium, kidney, pancreas, gallbladder, thyroid, ovary, cervix, prostate, lymphomas, and multiple myelomas. So this is something which is in our hand, and if we control our body weight, we can reduce the incidence of cancer. Yoga. We talk a lot about yoga. So there is so much of treatment toxicities, and there is a lot of physical and psychosocial issues which keep haunting the survivors for a long time. So how does yoga therapy help? It is successful. It actually creates a beautiful balance between the nervous and the endocrine system. It is it doesn't cure cancer, it doesn't provide a cure for cancer, but it alleviates the patient's agony. And it is priceless and it is inexpensive and it doesn't require any infrastructure or any maintenance. Helps us to boost our positivity, creates positive moods, it reduces our negative thoughts, it lowers the hostility of the individual, it increases the enthusiasm, and also it improves the sleep quality of every individual. So yoga is something that we should always encourage our people to do. So turning how diet, it is often said what we are indeed is what we eat, you know. So turning vegetarian has also helped reduce these cancers. So if we look at the overall factors, you realize environmental and the lifestyle risk factors can reduce the cancers to almost 50%. So eating healthy is something which we should all emphasize. A lot of people talk about sugar and cancer, and there is a connection between the two. And this was brought forth by a gentleman, by a scientist called Otto Warburg. Now, eating sugar, everything in excess, as we say, is bad. So also here, too much of sugar consumption, especially the processed sugar, is not good. The other is we should promote eating a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. So the colors in the fruits actually are cancer protective. So each color is helping us to protect against different types of cancer. And that's how we came out with the concept of rainbow, eating the rainbow. So if you have a platter of 5 fruits, 5 different fruits of different colors, and have plenty of vegetables in a day, and do a lot of physical activity, at least around 30 minutes a day, that's going to reduce your mortality by 50%. And also people eating a lot of fruits and vegetables have lived twice as long. The other is that you should have an intake of good vitamin C rich diet. So it includes a lot of citrus fruits. Expose yourself to sunlight. Haldi is one thing that we talk about, that's turmeric. And there are many more natural substances in our nature which are cancer protective.
Excuse me, Dr. Tapaswini, sorry for butting in, but can you please wrap up?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm almost done with, and saying no to tobacco is something which we should all advocate. So thank you so much. And in the end, I would say that life is all hills and valleys, ebbs and flow. There are sometimes patches of, you know, it has patches which are grim and dark, but then there are patches which are so delightful, patches of sunshine. So let's be positive and look forward to cancer-free India. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tapaswini. We would have loved to hear you for a longer time, some other day perhaps. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Viewers, we've got a small quiz for you. This is a very simple quiz. Watch carefully the next 4 slides and identify the movie which doesn't have cancer as center. Write the answers in the chat box in next 5 minutes only. And Sandhya will be taking care, and the answers will be given to you after the webinar. So this is the quiz 1. A.
Yes. Anand.
B.
This doesn't have.
Dr. Tapaswini, you're unmuted actually. So don't give the answers. C. D. So do write in your answers in the next 5 minutes. Now may I introduce Ms. Rita Bhalla. She's Director, Cancer Sahyog. And Rita, you are muted. She will be introducing what Cancer Sahayog does for us. Rita, yes?
Yes. Now, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Rita Bhalla. I'll tell you about Cancer Sahayog. It is that section of the Indian Cancer Society that is responsible for patient care. Cancer Sahayog was established in the year 1991 by a cancer survivor who strongly felt that no one should be left alone to fight this disease. Over the last 3 decades, we have come a very long way. We have a large strength of volunteers who are not only very well trained, but they also have had an experience, a personal experience with cancer. Maybe they are survivors. Some of them have been caretakers to very close relatives or friends. We visit 15 major cancer hospitals in the Delhi NCR region to provide emotional support to the patients, address their concerns, and felicitate the communication between cancer patients, their family members, and the health professionals. The volunteers motivate the patients to make healthy lifestyle choices, make them aware of the side effects of the treatment and how to deal with them, provide the rehab support and counseling, give financial assistance to the patients who need it. We adopt at least 25 patients in a year and we give them support. We help them with the treatment. We help them with even the diagnosis. We give bras and prostheses to ladies who have undergone mastectomy. So this is where we spend a lot of money. That is how we, during our seminar, we request everyone to donate as generously as possible. We also organize a lot of workshops, seminars, a lot of sessions at regular intervals. These are to help the patients, the caretakers, the general audience, and even our volunteers to get to know about the latest trends in cancer care so that we can look after our patients even better. The hospitals we visit, the patients really look forward to our volunteers coming to meet them, and even the doctors are very appreciative of all the volunteers. So this is about our Cancer Sahayog. Today, with great happiness, I like to announce the release of our biannual newsletter, which is called Nargis. It's a very nice name to be given to this magazine because we feel all our patients, survivors, spread so much of hope and happiness. They are just like the flower Nargis, which spreads so much of fragrance. I request Mrs. Kamna Taneja, who is a volunteer with ICS and also the editor of this newsletter, to join me in releasing Nargis.
For the first time ever, our biannual newsletter Nargis is being released online. Nargis gives you an encapsulated summary of all the activities that ICS Delhi has undertaken since the last issue. All events, conferences attended, awards, workshops, trainings, panel discussions, and now webinars and details about our e-learning courses. So do go through these 3 colorful pages and get updated.
And the last page of Nargis, we have a lot of information, very useful information on the last page. We have the names of all the 15 hospitals that our volunteers visit. We also have telephone numbers and the names of 2 volunteers per hospital, our helpline number, so that our patients can be in touch with us, especially at this challenging time of COVID. So when they talk to us, we can counsel them, we can guide them. Not only that, we also have the details of our cancer screening detection center and also Prashanti, which is the rehab center, so that our patients can use the benefits and the facilities provided. We would be putting this link in a day or so. So please go through this and I'm sure you'll like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. So do have a look at Nargis. You all will be getting the link soon. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. She's Sonam Kalra, not so much of a speaker as a singer actually. She's a multiple award-winning singer and a composer. Inherent in her beautiful, powerful voice and compositions is an integrity that reflects her philosophy. Her Sufi gospel project blends the many voices of faith through poetry, prayer, and music to resonate with a universal voice. Her strong beliefs make her use her voice against child abuse, women's rights, animal rights, and children education. In fact, she has been an artist against cancer twice and has held the audience spellbound every time. Her music truly heals the heart and makes it whole, flows from heaven to the soul. Sonam, over to you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for asking me to be part of the wonderful work that you do, for being part of this community. I think cancer is, as an issue, as something that is very close to my heart, because my mother was, as she called herself, not a cancer survivor, but a cancer samurai. And I thought that was such a beautiful term, because she always said, you know, meaning being a survivor means that you are just someone who is surviving, but being a samurai means that you embrace it with strength and fortitude and courage. And honestly, to all of you who are here, this is my way of paying tribute. You have to forgive me. I get emotional. My mother was amazing. This is a hard month because it's also her birthday month. My mother was amazing. She got cancer. When she got cancer, she was diagnosed with lung cancer, 4th stage, and she was given only, and I find this very strange, you know, and I know that there are doctors listening today, so I'm going to say this for their ears as well. She was given by the doctors 4 or 5 months to live. And what was interesting is life is not ours to give. It is not a doctor's to give. It is not a statistics to give. So I think that when doctors tell you stuff like that, one of the things they perhaps don't realize, and I understand that they are telling you this because they feel they must let you know the odds, and they do it from the goodness of their hearts. But one of the things they don't realize perhaps is they make you feel like you have a finite time. And the fact of the matter is we all have a finite time. So why must a cancer patient be told that you only have these many months to live? I think that the thing to tell them is to say that the disease has progressed. You can perhaps beat it. You can be the individual and not the statistic. There are many, many people who beat it, who become the individual and not the statistic. Like I said to you, my mother was given 4 or 5 months to live with stage 4 adenocarcinoma. And in fact, when the doctor went in, and we went to Bombay to get her surgery done, when the doctor went in, he was going to do a partial sort of lump. They removed the lung. I've forgotten what it's called. Thank God I've forgotten what it's called. The scars are always so deep. But they were going to remove a partial portion of her lung. And he went in and he said, the surgery ended much earlier than we expected, and we were wondering what had happened. And he said, you know, there's no point my doing the surgery because I went in and I found that the other lung also has nodes. And so my mother was so disappointed because she had sort of come to terms with the fact that I'm going to have, yes, less of a lung, but I will beat the disease. So she was really upset about it. And then we went on to MD Anderson, and I'm giving you the history. And I thought what they said, again, the doctors there felt they needed to give you the facts. But what was lovely was a nurse we met there who made me realize, talk to me about statistic versus individual. And that has really stayed with me because none of us is a statistic. You hear of incredible cases, not just of cancer, of times when I have a friend who went into a coma and he went into with a head injury, and he went into a coma, and he was in coma for 6 months, a young boy. So all the statistics would have said that either he should have gone, or because he was really young, he should have bounced out of it really quickly. The fact of the matter is 6 months later, because his mother never gave up on him, he came back, he came to. It's taken 8 years of physiotherapy. He is now married, he has 2 wonderful children, and he's back to riding again. I mean, so that is the individual versus the statistic. One of the, anyway, so my mother started her treatment. They tried chemotherapy. It didn't work. The tumor didn't really show the signs of reduction it should have shown. Then we decided to go with a radiation therapist. The radiation started to work. My mother, for a large part, used to be burnt on her chest. But one of the things that I remember about her is that she never stopped smiling and she never stopped dancing. She managed, and these are things that I think of, and I think even today, we all think we're going through a really difficult time with COVID, or different times in our lives when we think we're struggling. When she could have, through her most difficult time of radiation or chemotherapy, look at me and say, Sonam, look outside the balcony and look at that beautiful little birdie. And I would just look at her with amazement and I'd say, look at that. You can still see the joy in life, which when we're healthy, we forget to see. So I learned so many wonderful lessons from her. I also learned that the words of Rumi, which are such beautiful words, ring so true. Rumi says, the wound is the place the light enters you. And truly, you must think of that, because we are all given what we can face. We are all made to go through what we can face, and we do get more enlightened at the end of it. Anyway, the wonderful thing that happened was my mother decided she wasn't ready to take 4 months. So she lived 8 years with a prognosis of 4 months. My mother lived 8 wonderful years where she danced, she got dressed, she wore makeup, she went out, she spent all the time she could with her 3 daughters, with her wonderful, loving husband. My mother loved to dance. And I remember even when the day she got her prognosis, friends came over and she put on this music and we all did the Scottish reel, because my mother said she remembered she learned it in convent school when she was very young. So we all danced, and that's the way she approached it. And she always said that I'm talking to my cancer. She wrote poetry when the cancer had spread to her brain and she had lost use of her right hand. She wrote poetry on her Nokia phone, where you used to have to press a button 3 times to get from A to C or to type anything. She used to write poetry on her Nokia phone because she couldn't write anymore. She used to write it with her left hand. I still have so much of her beautiful poetry. And so, honestly, and I know that there are many people like her, many incredible stories of wonderful human spirit and fortitude. And all I can say is what I learned from her is to never give up, is to never stop being positive, because you have no idea what you can overcome. So to all of you there who are going through a difficult time, who have lost family, remember they're with you in so many different ways. One of the things I remember when my mother passed away is I said to someone, when someone said, you lost your mother, I said, I'm never going to lose the love I have for her. So she's always going to be alive. Renu, you're never going to invite me to do these again. I get so emotional. I get so emotional.
I know you do. Anyone does when you start talking about your parents, especially a mother. I mean, not that a father is any less. But
no,
yes,
not at all. But I think that I also feel
now your Ek Omkar is needed to set the
and I think that we all feel so closely to those we love, and I think it's hard to see the ones that we love suffer, but we must stay strong. And thank you for this beautiful community that you all have created. I know that you give so much strength to so many people, and I'd like to say a prayer of gratitude to all of you, and a prayer that I hope will give everyone some strength. Ek Omkar. सतनाम एक ओंकार सतनाम एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुरु प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच एक ओंकार सतनाम एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुरु प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच एक ओंकार सतनाम एक ओंकार सतनाम 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 एक ओंकार सतनाम एक ओंकार सतनाम 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 So I'm going to do another quick piece for you, which is a wonderful hymn. It was Mahatma Gandhi's favorite hymn. It's a prayer to God to watch over one, to abide by one, to always be by one's side. And when I used to sing it just as it was. And then one day when I was researching the poetry of Kabir Das, I found an absolutely beautiful verse which felt like it was a missing piece of the puzzle. It felt like the answer to this prayer in the words of Kabir Das. So this is my version of Abide with Me with a little help from Kabir. I'm just going to recite a small couplet that my mother wrote when I start. So when you hear those words, you know they're hers, and she's with all of us today. गुरु मेरे साथ खड़े हैं, गोविंद यहीं तो हैं, अल्लाह भी मौजूद है यहाँ, तो कौन कहाँ से है, तो कौन कहाँ से है। Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens. Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts for thee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. I need thy presence every passing hour. What but thy grace can foil the tempter's power? Who like thyself, my guide and stay can be, through cloud, through sunshine, abide with me. I fear no foe, with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight and 'tis no bitterness. मस्जिद में, न काबे कैलाश में, मौको कहाँ ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास हूँ। ना मंदिर में, ना मस्जिद में, ना काबे कैलाश में, ना मैं जप में, ना मैं तप में, ना मैं व्रत उपवास में, ना मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता, ना ही योग संन्यास में, ना ही प्राण में, ना ही पिंड में, ना ब्रह्मांड आकाश में, ना मैं भ्रिकुटी भवर गुफा में, सब श्वासन की श्वास में, खोजी हुए तुरंत मिल जा इस पल की तलाश में, खोजी हुए तुरंत मिल जा इस पल की तलाश में। कहें कबीर सुनो भाई साधो, मैं तो हूं विश्वास में, मैं तो हूं विश्वास में। So thank you. Thank you for asking me to be part of this webinar. I wish we could all actually be face to face with each other, because so much of what you do is about community. But I think that we can find ways like this, beautiful ways like this, to connect. So thank you to each one of you who shared in the music. Thank you to the doctors, the nurses who are our caregivers. Thank you to ICS for all the incredible work you do, for being literally the best friends, the family, the extended family for so many families and people who are going through cancer. Jyotsna ji, I can finally see you. There you are. I have to get into gallery view to be able to see you. Always sending you so much love for all the work that you do, Jyotsna ji. To your incredible team, Sunita ji, Colonel Tomar. Did I say, is it Brigadier Tomar or Colonel Tomar? Please forgive me for getting the are you Brigadier Colonel? Colonel Tomar. So I have to get that right. But thank you. If there's anything I can ever do, you know that I consider myself part of the family. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonam. That was sublime. But we have to get back to the real world. So my request to you all to please again save the next screen and dig into your wallets. Help us to help the cancer patients. So next screen will be our fundraising scheme, the bank details, which you can easily save. I hope you all have got that down. Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Ravi Mehrotra. He is CEO, Indian Cancer Research Consortium, and was Director, ICMR in WHO FCTC Global Knowledge Hub for Smokeless Tobacco Products, National Tobacco Testing Lab. He is a professor and a teacher. He's a winner of more than 20 national and international awards. His journal articles in peer-reviewed publications are, believe it or not, 11,590. Dr. Mehrotra, your 20-page CV was too impressive to edit into this 1 minute, so I'm not even trying. We at Indian Cancer Society know you as a great friend who we are now privileged to have on our management committee. Over to Dr. Ravi, who will tell you about lung cancer and pollution. Pollution ka overdose ho gaya hai. But if you really think the clean air is less important than the economy, try holding your breath while you count your money. Over to you, Dr. Ravi.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be back with the ICS family, as Sonam just, as a matter of fact, just mentioned. I've been involved with you folks for probably more than a decade in my previous position, as well as the position that I hold right now. So it's a pleasure to be here. And it's also to see Mrs. Josna Govil chiming in from the UK, Sunita, Renuka, and the entire gang. So it's a pleasure to be here and to be interacting with your audience in this particular webinar. Talking immediately after Sonam with her soulful rendition of the two beautiful songs is a bit of an anticlimax, I suppose. So what I plan to do in the next few minutes is not go into too many technical details, but to talk about how where we are today as far as pollution. I know it's a bad word and it's a topical word. The picture that you see in front of you in the screen is the famous India Gate. For people who live in Delhi and in NCR, obviously we cross this gate so many times in a day. This picture was probably taken in the summer, and the next one on the right is the same building taken maybe sometime in November, where you can hardly see the outline. And this is a yearly phenomena. I'm hopeful and praying to the Almighty that this year, with the reduced traffic and the lower carbon footprint that we are hoping to have with the COVID pandemic, at least something good will come out of it. And there was a report in the press this morning how the IT companies, because of less travel and not only within the city, but also nationally and internationally, all the companies are now filing a carbon footprint reduction report. So I mean, there is a glimmer of hope somewhere that this COVID pandemic will at least have some advantages, and that is reducing pollution. Why do I say that pollution is important? Anybody who lives in Delhi knows very well, or actually not only in Delhi, in practically 76% of our, nearly 3/4 of our population in the country are exposed to high levels of pollution. And it's a known fact, something I'm not very proud of, that India is the second most polluted country in the world after China, unfortunately. Interestingly, India is also the second most populated country, or populous country, so to say, in the world. So these two things go together, and neither of us are very proud of it. China has obviously been more, so to say, proactive in reducing pollution than we have, but they also have a long way to go. So I'm just going to briefly touch on what are the problems associated with pollution. So as the topic of the day is Swachh Hawa, Swachh Vatavaran, and Swachh Jeevan. So similarly, all of us, and not only those who are the wrong side of 40 or 50, many of us are worried about our next generation. What will happen to the kids who are less than 20 years or 15 years of age. If we have this problem, and with growing commercialization, with growing business of various sorts and coming up with all sorts of pollutants, where are we going to go? And what relation, if any, will it portend for the future? And what is the relation of cancer? So as we go further, again, if you see the bridge across the ITO, the Income Tax Office in Delhi, women folk praying during the post-Diwali Chhath festival, what seems to be snow. Well, obviously it is not snow. This is the foam, which is with the pollution. This is under the bridge, the ITO bridge. And, you know, it could form a very lovely picture. If only we knew that this is not snow, this is not clean, this is actually full of pollutants. And as they say, for cricket, and India is a cricket-loving country or a nation, catch them young. Unfortunately, for cricket, of course, the younger the better. When we teach them cricket and they go on to form India's team, which goes and win the World Cup. Similarly, the generation of the future, the kids, the teens in schools and colleges, they are taking this path probably better than any of us today. So this picture that if you don't kill pollution, it may actually kill you.
Dr. Mehrotra, your slides are not moving.
Okay, just give me a second.
Yeah.
How about now? Can you see?
You're still on the first slide.
Oh, for some reason. I apologize for that. Let me see what's happening. Okay.
Yeah, now that's it.
Okay, you're fine. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. The pollution as well as the kids. Is that better, or should I go on to full screen?
No, much better.
Okay, great. And as we go along, we see that all pervasive pollution affects not only our health, as far as the physical health is concerned, but also our mental health. Can you see this? Has a slide changed now, madam?
No.
Oh, okay, I'll just stick to the lower version. That seems to be working better. Now this is okay?
Yeah.
So the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is a WHO body based in Lyon in France, way back about 7 years ago, they talked about the outdoor air pollution and the particulate matter. And they have sufficient evidence, and IR of WHO is the most respected body in the world, which talks about what can cause cancer and what cannot. So they were very clear about it. And I will not bother to take you through all the various chemicals, whether it is benzene or benzopyrene and polycyclic. These have become common day words now, especially in the winter's month as we face more and more pollution. And they cause cancers and various other diseases, not only in humans, but also in animals. And of course, it is no big surprise that the levels of pollution as per WHO standards is widely crossed in about 22 major cities of India. So what is the global burden of disease and where do we come in the picture? So, I mean, these figures sound very prosaic that, 1 in 4 lifetime for men risk and then 1 in 3 for women. But you can actually look around you. If you see 4 people, at least 4 men, 1 will have a problem with pollution, and 1 in 3, actually women are affected more than men. And these are the kind of deaths that happen. And these are the million cases, 17 million cases and really 9 million deaths. And way back about 15 years ago, over a period of 10 years, it went up to 33%, increasing in incidence. First of all, we had a growing population, not only in the world, but also in India. The aging was increasing. Now it is not unusual to find people in the 80s and 90s. When the pyramid used to be inverse in India with the maximum people, still we are a very young country. But as you can well imagine, the number of geriatric or people who are in the 80 to 90 age group, if you look around us, many of our grandmoms, granddads are alive and well, and some of them are very active. So basically, there's been a huge increase all over the world, but more so in countries which are developing or going up the epidemiological index. Again, to talk about what are the common cancers, and this was published in JAMA Oncology, so whether it is prostate or lung or colorectal. In ladies, of course, breast, again, colorectal lymphomas. What are the sources of air pollution, especially as far as we in India is concerned? Of course, as you see, nearly 50% are industries. And as industries increase and kind of precautions that they are taking to reduce the pollution that they cause is now gradually growing up. The awareness is growing up. Government regulations is making sure it happens. However, still, it remains practically half of the pollution. And the other half is waste burning, which in any major city you see that people are not only burning plastic, but they're also burning all sorts of other waste which is produced in the colonies or in the residential areas. Similarly, when now all these factors, till about 5 or 10 years ago, I had no clue what 2.5 was, what PM10 was, but I think we all know now that the smallest particulate matter, again, road dust is a very major aspect as far as PM 2.5. So in India, unfortunately, we are a dusty country, and especially in areas which are open, you find that nearly 40% is dust. And vehicles, there have been a lot of move to electric or to CNG vehicles around the country. This has definitely changed. And every year in Delhi, at least, we see that odd even thing coming in. I'm not sure how much of a difference it is making. Then, of course, you have various other, whether it is concrete or hotels and various other industrial pollutants. So what does this cause? We know very well that it is responsible for nearly 9% of lung cancer deaths, 5% of cardiopulmonary, that is cardiac and other lung diseases, and more than 1.3 million people die around the world. And this is from outdoor pollution. What we don't realize, and quite often it is underestimated, that their indoor pollution is actually even worse. So actually, nearly twice the number, that is 2 million people die globally from indoor pollution. And those of us who lived in smaller towns or villages or who come from smaller places, still the chulha or the indoor chulha is still common. There have been various ways where the gas is being advocated, but burning of wood and burning of coal is still around, causing indoor pollution. And many times we don't even realize that this pollution is not only dangerous, but also can be a killer. So air pollution has also been called the invisible killer. Since you can't see it most of the time, and you really cannot see what is happening. Quite often when you go in a polluted area, you find it difficult to breathe, and you may get a headache, you make all sorts of physical symptoms. So practically 30% of deaths from lung cancer, 25% from stroke, and about the same number from heart disease. I mean, all these sounds very, very simple, but when it affects you or someone close to you, then you realize how complicated things are. So as I mentioned, the three commonest organs which are involved are the brain, the heart, and the lung. Not only cancers, but also acute and chronic respiratory diseases, including things like asthma. So what is the largest killer in the world? It is again air pollution. So when we talk about epigenetic, which is the manifestation of pollution, I will not take you through all these technical details, but those of you who want to know, even the transgenerational inheritance, if the mother or the pregnant lady is a mother to be, is exposed to pollution, the pollution crosses the placental barrier and can give rise to child problems in the newborn child. And these can also result in respiratory, kidney, neural, cardiovascular, so on and so forth. So obviously, I don't need to emphasize that nearly every organ of the body can be affected. Just to give it in a more graphical version, starting from a headache to fatigue, to all sorts of cancer risks, nausea, then pesticides are also part of pollution. So let's not dwell too much into that. I'll directly move on to what are the other problems? For example, aside from tobacco, which is responsible for 40% of all deaths, preventable deaths in the country, not only due to cancer, but also chronic cardiac and respiratory disease. And enough has been said about tobacco by my previous speakers. But still remains one of the most important things which all of us at ICS and our viewers on this webinar can do. There's a lot remains to be done, a lot has been done, but still it is all pervasive. Unfortunately, lung cancers, for example, which is now the biggest killer as far as not only in India, many other parts of the world, it does affect 50% of people who do not smoke, including 40% of men and roughly double that of females. And why? Why do non-smokers get lung cancer? Aside from, say, adenocarcinoma, which is not related to what Sonam's mother had, unfortunately, which is not related to tobacco, many of our folks, including women folk, are exposed to secondhand smoke. What is secondhand smoke? Basically, people who are smoking bidis or cigarettes, but in indoor confined areas where they are exposed to that particular smoke. And interestingly, there is something called third-hand smoke. Many people are not aware of what that is. And third-hand smoke is primarily looking at smoke particles or nicotine or other pollutants which are stuck to bed covers, to car upholstery, to curtains. When you go to a hotel and if you don't have a non-smoking room, you may get a strong whiff of nicotine smoke. And I often have a fight with my hotel that, you are saying it is non-smoking. Why am I getting this particular smell? Well, I don't smoke. Why should I take anybody else's smoke? So these are the three kinds of, first of all, indirect, second is second-hand smoke, and the other is third-hand smoke. The picture on the right talks about the most polluted countries, which unfortunately, I said, we are not very proud of this. It is China, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, and so on and so forth. Something, hopefully, in another few years' time, when somebody gives a similar talk, India will not be in the picture. I'm still very hopeful. Now before we end, we talk about what are the disability adjusted life years. Here again, aside from respiratory tract infection, heart disease, stroke, and so on and so forth, air pollution comes number 4. And it is 210. And that causes disability adjusted, that causes problems with lifestyle, with productivity, and also day-to-day people taking holidays or chutti from work. These things come very much in the picture, and they're related not only to diabetes, cataract, so on and so forth. So pollution is something, obviously, is all pervasive. This is the paper which was talked about in Lancet Public Health in 2017, and the dark red colors are the states of the country which are maximally affected by pollution. As you can see, the dark red are basically the hinterland, whether it is Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, and then on the west, it is Maharashtra and Karnataka, which are the ones which are not only Maharashtra, it's the Karnataka which is the worst affected, and one can imagine why. Then we talk about the PM2.5, which is again the smallest particle that we know, again roughly, and when we are comparing the various issues, the one on the left is the ambient PM2.5, which is again, you find Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and then you're talking about the population which is using solid fuels. And I talked about indoor pollution, how people use the chulha, and that causes indoor pollution. That is, again, the same, by and large, the same states. And unfortunately, the East, including Bihar, Jharkhand, and Odisha, and Assam are also there. So it is practically in the majority of the country. And this is a variation over a period of time when you talk about the difference between 1998 to 2014, that's practically about 16 years. You can see the dark brown colors, which is the maximal, again in the hinterland, mainly in the north, which is Uttar Pradesh and the surrounding areas. It is actually doubled or that specific area. So 99% of the districts are above the WHO exposure lines. Just about to wind up now, when you talk about hotspots, again, it is the same story. it is the north, it is Delhi NCR, UP, and gradually this spot goes on. And the air pollution map of India, where actually the deep brown is again the same sort of. So roughly the kind of pictures that we see, and this is very recent data from 2019. So we see that what are the states which are worst affected. However, before I end talking about the doom and the gloom, what do we do? And these are the 6 or 7 measures which are touted as the area which requires the maximum amount of effort, which are smart mobility. We talked about electric and diesel and CNG vehicles. We talked about power sector emissions and industries. Waste management, already in many colonies, at least in the major cities, they're talking about the separation of waste and reusing it. An area which is not given so much importance so far is construction and road dust management. In few countries and few cities in India as well, you have people putting water on it, and then rather than using the jhadu to move one part of the dust to another part of the road, we're actually talking about vacuum cleaners and making sure the dust is removed. Indoor pollution and clean cooking, we talked about already. It is a major problem, gradually becoming less, but hopefully will become even further less. Industrial emissions and transport emissions are another area which we need to focus on. Before I finish, I want to show you these 3 pictures. One, of course, looks like it is a COVID mask, but actually this was before COVID, and it is your right to clean air. And I cannot impress this further, that if we do not talk about our right, who else is going to do it? The picture on the top is an individual, a woman walking around with an oxygen cylinder on her back. I hope and pray we never come to this situation. And the last picture that is on the right bottom hand side is something you might have read about in the press in Delhi. Somebody in the last winter came up with an oxygen parlor. So just like you have smoking rooms at airports, similarly, there's an oxygen parlor where you can go and spend X amount of rupees and take X amount of oxygen in you over a period of minutes. And of course, now with the COVID situation, I would not only wish it on my enemy, people on a ventilator or people who are having a problem with oxygen carrying capacity have to have 60 liters of oxygen in a minute. And I don't really wish anybody has to go through that situation. So to prevent that situation, I think the time is ripe. And I don't think I need to go any further and try to convince you the Swachh Hawa, Swachh Vatavaran is probably the best way to go about it. Why do we have to go overseas? Why do we have to go to the hills to breathe? What should be our right? What should be our responsibility? And making sure and talking about the government is not doing that or the public is not doing good. The way to do it, in my view, is charity always starts at home. And we at the ICS and various other responsible organizations should make sure that, first of all, we ourselves and the people around us ensure that whatever can be possibly done to reduce pollution should be done. With those words, I thank you so much for your very kind attention. And I hope and pray that whenever we meet next, we'll be in a far better position to say that at least what we could have done in our lifetime, in our own situation, we have done. Thank you so much for your very kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi. That was indeed enlightening. So viewers, we've got another quiz for you. And answers again in the next 5 minutes. Sandhya is keeping a very watchful eye. So we are going to show you 4 pictures. Who among them has not been in the field of environment? A, B, C, and D. So when we talk about environment, please guess which one is not a part of environment. And Indrajit, please. I can see your answer on the screen. Our next speaker is Mr. Vivek Thomar. He's a caregiver and spouse of Kusum Malik, a patient of stage 4 lung cancer, which quickly spread to the brain, bones, stomach, and reproductive organs. She was a participant of 6 clinical trials and research medicines. Kusum was told she had only 6 months to 1 year to live. She survived 7 years to see her 4-year-old son grow up. Her hope, her courage, and Vivek's support is exemplary. Vivek's and Kusum's story and advocacy work have featured in many national and international media. Very aptly so, his Twitter handle is Rise to Survive Cancer. Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you. Hello, namaste to everyone. Thank you for having me here. Last 1.5 hours, I don't know how it went, and I'm so feel lucky to hear all these speakers and to part of this great initiative, this great activity, which is actually impacting our society in the most beautiful way. So thank you, Indian Cancer Society, what you are doing. This nation, we all citizens are in debt for you for years and years and years to come. I also want to thank Dr. Ravi, Sonam and others to cover a lot of things which I want to say today, because like Dr. Ravi has covered about lung cancer and non-smoking part and air pollution. I'm as Sunita ji mentioned, I'm a fierce patient advocate, और मुझे बुलाया गया एज ए केयर गिवर, पर मैं रोक नहीं पाता अपने आप को पेशेंट एडवोकेसी की बात करे हुए. तो डॉक्टर रवि हैज कवर्ड सम पार्ट्स एंड सेव मी फ्रॉम दैट. So how it started and how it is caregiver thing is, so my wife and she is with me, if you can see. मैं कहीं उसके बिना पहले कभी नहीं जाता था किसी कॉन्फ्रेंस में, और आज भी नहीं जाता हूँ. तो सुनीता जी सॉरी, विदाउट रजिस्ट्रेशन ये आ गई हैं. So she is always with me. So she was diagnosed in at age of 29, non-smoker, mother of 3-year-old son at that time. She was a pharmaceutical scientist, before that a clinical trial scientist, and when she was diagnosed, she was an associate professor in a medical college, pharmaceutical college. So she knows this stuff, never smoked in her life, and she got lung cancer, metastatic to brain, 32 mets in brain, ovaries, uterus, adnexia, abdomen, spinal cord, brain. So one thing is clear, that anyone who has lungs can get lung cancer. And in India, lung cancer has been so bad stigma कि smoking वालों को होता है. So I thank you, Dr. Ravi, to you and Indian Cancer Society, that we are talking about today lung cancer and showing that now 70 to 80% are non-smokers there, and unfortunately my wife was there. She has a very rare type of cancer, that was ALK lung cancer, non-small cell LTML4. This is very, very rare lung cancer. Usually happen to non-smoker and young people. और मेरे केस में क्या हुआ था कि हमने पूछा था डॉक्टर से कि प्लीज बताओ कितना टाइम है, और पूछा इसलिए था कि कुसुम ने पूछा कि अगर 3 साल है मैं एंजॉय करूंगी, 1 साल है मैं कुछ करूंगी, 6 महीने में अपने बेटे को टाइम दूंगी, तो मुझे पता होना चाहिए. तो डॉक्टर ने हमारे सामने, बिकॉज वी बोथ आर फ्रॉम फार्मा बैकग्राउंड, वी बोथ आर साइंटिस्ट, तो उन्होंने हमें डाटा रख दिया और बोला कि विवेक ये तो 6 महीने या 1 साल का है, तो प्लान कर लो. मैं थोड़ा कमजोर किस्म का आदमी हूँ, तो मैंने प्यार के अलावा जिंदगी में बहुत कम चीजें अलग की हैं. तो मैंने उनको बोला, तो मैं ना एज टिपिकल इंडियन कैसे बढ़िया निकाला जाए वो स्टार्ट किया था, रोना स्टार्ट किया था, बिकॉज लाइफ ही खत्म हो रही थी. बट कुसुम ने एक दिन वो भी रो रही थी, वी क्राइड. 1 महीना ऐसे निकल गया. देन उसने मुझे बोला एक दिन रोते हुए कि विवेक देखो 1 साल है, या तो इसको रोते हुए निकालना है या हंसते हुए निकालना है, हमारे ऊपर है. क्यों ना इसके लिए फाइट करें और हंसते हुए फाइट करें, होना जो है ना. वो दिन था और आज का दिन है. मैंने रोना बहुत कम कर दिया था. कुसुम चली गई, मैं आज भी फाइट कर रहा हूँ उन लाखों कुसुम के लिए जो आज भी जिंदा हैं, और ये फाइट मैं जब तक मैं जिंदा हूँ जब तक तो खत्म नहीं होने वाली. तो यही मेरी स्टोरी है होप की, ये मेरी स्टोरी है लव की, जहाँ से स्टार्ट हुई थी. और अब मैं केयर गिवर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, मेरे लिए केयर गिवर का रिश्ता ना, और it's practical because literally वो 6 months के अंदर she went into coma. Even उसके हार्ट के चारों तरफ भी इतना फ्लूइड, पेरिकार्डियल फ्लूइड एफ्यूजन विद कैंसर हो गया था कि she had 9 surgeries at that time. So doctors were right, they were not wrong in our case. It was so tough और मतलब कोई ऑप्शन बचा नहीं था. And पर फिर एक होता है ना कृष्ण जी वाला और अर्जुन वाला रिश्ता, लड़ना तो इन लोगों को है, अर्जुन को लड़ना है, बट हम केयर गिवर ना बहुत अच्छी कृष्ण बन सकते हैं, हम रास्ते में साथ चल सकते हैं, मोटिवेट कर सकते हैं और रास्ता दिखा भी सकते हैं. केयर गिविंग इज नॉट अबाउट ओनली द इमोशनल सपोर्ट, इट इज नॉट अबाउट कि आप मेडिसिन लेके जा रहे हैं, इट इज अबाउट ए टिपिकल सारथी जो आप कृष्ण जी की तरह साथ चलते हैं. इट इज नॉट अबाउट हाउ मच you do the work, is about how much love you put in the work. This is about the caregiver stuff, or that's how we started. And what we did differently is first was the medical management जो हमने किया. And कुसुम को जो पहली ईयर में जब प्रोग्रेशन हो गया था, डॉक्टर ने बोल दिया था घर जाने के लिए, तो we find कि क्या ऑप्शन है. And then we started to search and we find कि US में medicines and that cost 16 lakh per month. नहीं ले सकता था मैं, आम इंडियन में नहीं ले सकता था. और ये एक बार नहीं, कुसुम की जर्नी, क्योंकि हमारी स्टोरी बहुत ज्यादा मीडिया में तो मैं इसलिए डिटेल में नहीं जा रहा, बट मैं मैसेज जो केयर गिविंग का देना चाहता हूँ दैट इन आवर स्टोरी इट हैपेंड 5 times व्हेन कुसुम वाज डिक्लेयर्ड ऑलमोस्ट डेड. देयर वाज नॉट ए सिंगल मेडिसिन इन इंडिया, देयर वाज नॉट ए सिंगल मेडिसिन इन इंडिया जो उस पर ट्राई ना हो चुकी हो, बट देयर वर मेडिसिन्स हु वर इन क्लिनिकल ट्रायल इन यूएस और हांगकांग और समवेयर एल्स. And I fight. कुसुम फाइट किया. कुसुम ने घर पे रह के मौत से, देयर वाज ए टाइम शी गॉट पैरालिसिस. उसका 32 ट्यूमर्स बहुत होते हैं जो बढ़ गए, इतने हो गए कि उसका आधा चेहरा, एक हाथ पैरालिसिस हो गया, खाना नहीं खाया जाता था, गिरता रहता था. एंड उसने मुझे बोला था कि विवेक जब तक तुम मुझे जाने के लिए नहीं बोलोगे ना, मैं यहाँ से जाऊंगी नहीं, तो तुम फाइट करो, जहां जाना जाओ. और मैं लड़ पड़ा, मैं गवर्नमेंट से लड़ पड़ा, मैं डॉक्टर से लड़ पड़ा, मैं फार्मा कंपनी से लड़ पड़ा, मैं पूरे सिस्टम से लड़ पड़ा. एंड देन वी चेंज एंड देन दे बिकम फ्रेंड्स. एंड आई एम सो प्राउड टू से दैट कि इस जर्नी में वी हैव पार्टिसिपेटेड इन लाइक 7 क्लिनिकल ट्रायल रिसर्च मेडिसिन, जिनमें से 5 टाइम कुसुम बिकम द फर्स्ट पेशेंट इन इंडिया to get that particular medicine. We bring those medicines in India. और आज के टाइम में the data I do have those pharma companies, near about 5 lakh patients in India are getting those medicines जो हम इंडिया में लेके आए थे, जिसकी कीमत 11 लाख थी और आज एवरेज में उनकी कीमत 30 और 32 हजार पर मंथ है. So बहुत सारी कुसुम आज के टाइम में जिंदा हैं, इस कुसुम के पागलपंती, इसकी जिद की वजह से कि मुझे जीना है, मुझे मेरे परिवार के लिए जीना है, मुझे कुछ करना है, मुझे अपने बेटे को बड़े होते देखना है. That's about the fight we do as a partner. So that's we do the medical management. We were very open for clinical trials because clinical trial is the best way to get the latest treatment. Unfortunately इंडिया में आता नहीं है. हमारा 20% ग्लोबल डिजीज बर्डन है, 0.5% क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स आते हैं, and we don't have access to the, we are still in chemotherapy and they don't do chemotherapy in lot of cases, especially in lung cancer, adenocarcinoma lung cancer. And that's why when my wife got those medicine, like in one case after paralysis, she became on 17 January 2017 the first person, and at that time G News NDTV did a huge campaign for us. जब उन्होंने मुझे सड़कों पे देखा and they come to us, मैं उनके पास गया और सब मिले, डॉक्टर्स भी बहुत अच्छी सपोर्ट मिला. आफ्टर 7 months in September 2017 में उसने मैराथन में रन किया था. After 7 months post paralysis in medicines की वजह से, she run in a marathon in Delhi, that is Pinkathon from Milind Soman, and with a T-shirt that 5 years at lung cancer stage 4 and I am bleeding, so why can't you? So that's the medical management a caregiver can do and can save lives and still saving. The other part I would also like to say is hope for the best. You know, hope is the medicine. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So on every medicine के start होती. So for example, 17 January 2017 को X medicine start हुई थी. 18 January 2017 को कुसुम and I started कि अगर ये fail हो गया, resistance आ गया, तो what is the next medicine? And start कहाँ से लेनी है, किस country में क्या हो रहा है, finding the right support groups. And this is the called self advocacy. आप as a caregiver आप करते हैं कि understand what is your need, and most importantly is how you are going to find it. आप वो कैसे लेंगे. The other part is, the next is very, very important part is, as a caregiver, is the emotional management. coming from medical to emotional, friends, it's good to cry. बहुत जरूरी है रोना, and I'm very supportive of this. But उससे ज़्यादा important है रो, पर रोने के बाद मुस्कुराओ, and then you fight. And this is the recipe of everything. New normal means कुछ पहले तो रहा नहीं है ना. कैंसर के बाद तो every day, every minute is a challenge. And challenge is our new normal, and accept it. That is no normal. Believe me, Kusum and I never ask each other during our whole life कि why us? Yes. कभी-कभी ये लगता था बेटे का क्या होगा, but वो था कि what next? We were never with why. We were always what next? क्या करना है, कैसे करना है? Okay, कुसुम को पैरालिसिस हो गया, ये हो गया, अब next क्या करना है? दवाइयाँ नहीं मिल रही हैं, अब next क्या करना है? And this is how you are going to fight with cancer. And this is about the caregiving. That we are the one जो क्या next है, and that person, our Arjun, they keep fighting, and that's the Jodi we continue to make. And वो छोटी छोटी चीजें होती है. कैंसर में स्टिग्मा है, लंग कैंसर में तो इतना स्टिग्मा है. मेरी वाइफ मीडिया के सामने गई डिस्पाइट हर कैंसर टू से कि रिसर्च से मेडिसिन प्लीज क्लिनिकल ट्रायल लाओ, एंड देयर सम जर्नलिस्ट आस्क कि तुमने स्मोकिंग किया होगा, तो शी सेड नहीं किया, तो तुम्हारे घर में किसी ने किया होगा. एंड देन इट वाज मोर ऑफ ए ब्लेम गेम, एंड दैट दे डिसाइड इट इज अवर नॉट अवर फॉल्ट, एंड वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू हाइड. उस दिन के बाद में कुसुम ने कभी विग नहीं पहनी, वो उसके हेयर्स चले गए थे. एंड आपको पता है दिल्ली में हम लोग तो विंटर में तो स्कार्फ पहन लेते हैं, इजी हो जाता है कैंसर पेशेंट के लिए. उसने कभी स्कार्फ नहीं पहना. बोला उसने कि जब मेरी कोई गलती नहीं है तो मैं क्यों स्कार्फ पहनूं, व्हाई मी, एंड इट्स नॉट माय फॉल्ट, मैं क्यों छुपाऊं. एंड देन स्टार्टेड वेट गेन था, आई स्टूड विद हर, शी स्टूड विद मी, एंड दीज आर द स्मॉल थिंग दैट यू एज ए केयर गिवर वी हैव टू गिव द एनकरेजमेंट टू आवर पेशेंट. हाउ इट इज गो. इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट टू हैव मी टाइम. द नेक्स्ट थिंग कि दोनों के पास मी टाइम हो, दोनों के पास स्पेस हो. इट इज अबाउट द टिपिकल प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट की डॉक्टर से क्या बात करनी है, क्या नहीं करना. बट द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट इज लव एंड होप. मैं हमेशा बोलता हूँ कुसुम, मेरा हमारा कीवर्ड था कि लूजिंग इज नॉट एन ऑप्शन. फाइट फॉर योर फैमिली, फाइट फॉर योर सेल्फ. अगर लूज कर लिए तो हम कैंसर पेशेंट्स वालों के पास बचता क्या है. वो जब चली गई मेरे पास बचा क्या है. मेरे बेटे के पास मदर नहीं है, मेरे पास वाइफ नहीं है, बट दो शी डू हैव, बट फिजिकल कमी खलती है. तो प्लीज डोंट लूज, फाइट. इट्स यू. फॉर डॉक्टर्स इट कुड बी ए पेशेंट, फॉर फार्मा कंपनी यू कुड बी ए कस्टमर, बट वी आर फैमिली, सो वी हैव टू फाइट एंड वी कैन बीट इट. इफ कुसुम उस कंडीशन में शी कैन सर्वाइव more than 7 years, so why can't any one of us, why can't we have the best treatment? And that's about caregiving कि वो लड़ते रहे, हम साथ होते रहे. And before I go to the concluding notes, one more important thing I would like to strongly share here is mental health support, medical support. हम लोग कोई भी कभी मेंटल हेल्थ की बात ना ओपनली करते नहीं. इंडिया में देयर इज हार्डली अ साइकियाट्री डिपार्टमेंट विद इन द कैंसर डिपार्टमेंट. देयर इज ऑलवेज अदर. अब मैं सो आई एम एन इंटरनेशनल पेशेंट एडवोकेट, में बहुत सारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में बाहर काम करता हूँ, जाता हूँ. एंड इन देयर सिस्टम देयर इज ऑलवेज अ साइकियाट्रिस्ट विद अ ऑन्कोलॉजिस्ट. नहीं होता है. And psychiatric depression of fear of death. It's not about cancer. Depression of so much emotional stress and financial stress. बच्चा को अच्छी चीजें नहीं मिल रही, हम घूमने नहीं जा रहे. How much stress we do have a cancer patient and caregiver? Where that money will come from? And then the fear of death. And we got depression. I got depression so many times. I got anxiety. Kusum got depression. She got even psychiatric attack. उसको चीजें दिखाई देनी शुरू हो गई. And one of the with all due respect to the doctor, but one said कि जब दिखाई देने लगता है तो मतलब टाइम नजदीक आ गया है. नहीं, it could be a disease that can be balanced. It's a chemical imbalance, and we get the best mental health treatment. For me, जब डिप्रेशन होता था, जब मुझे घबराहट होती थी, it is like having a fear and taking the right medicine. And जब उसको चीजें दिखाई देने लगी थी के बाद में उसने 4 साल जिंदा रही है वो. So means emotional health, this mental health is the core part. So as a caregiver, we have to take care कि हम किसी को रोता कि बच्चे को कैंसर है तो रोएगा ही ना, वो तो डिप्रेशन रहेगा नहीं. We can live a happy life. Sonal mother, she lived 8 years. My wife lived so many years, and cancer was not the reason when she left. Honestly, her cancer was under control. She was on her 7th clinical trial. But what happened कि इंडिया में उसे टाइम पे मेडिसिन नहीं मिली थी. हर बार 4-4 महीने विदाउट मेडिसिन रहती थी. So her organs become weaker inside, which nobody could realize. But suddenly one day when she was dancing in a marriage and coming back and enjoying the life, marriage complete ki, and suddenly she started to lose her lungs.
एंड बट शी सेड कि जाऊंगी नहीं, बट वो रुक ही नहीं पाया मामला, और 3 दिन के अंदर शी वाज लिविंग। डॉक्टर ने उसको ऑलमोस्ट डेड दे दिया। उस टाइम मुझे पहली बार लगा कि वो रुक नहीं पाएगी। और द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग जो मैं हमेशा बोल रहा हूँ कि लव इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इन एनी अदर थिंग, वो कभी नहीं गई थी जब तक मैंने नहीं बोला। बट एट लास्ट उस दिन उसको तड़पता देख के मैंने बोल दिया कि यू गो, एंड विद इन 30 सेकेंड मेरे बोलने के बाद वो चली गई। So this is our story. So to all caregivers, don't lose hope. Losing is not an option for us. And thank you. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very moving. Thank you, Vivek. So now we have our answers to the quiz. Sandhya, please give the answers.
Okay. Yeah, so the first quiz, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first quiz, which was the Bollywood movie, we got 25 correct answers, which was very easy. Hum Aapke Hain Kaun movie was was the odd one out, and there were still 4 wrong ones. And the second one, when we were looking for the environmentalists, we got 13 correct answers, and Kamla Bhasin was the odd one out. So most of them were correct answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid we don't have any time for question and answers now, but we'll endeavor to answer them by email. And definitely all of you who put up questions will get answers to your questions soon. So I think it was an excellent webinar. And over to you, Renu.
Yeah,
for the
thanks,
roundup.
Rita. Yes, it has really been excellent, and it's really moved us all to tears with Vivek's story. But that is what we have to take out of it, the fact that we have to be courageous, and it's the courageous ones who fight it. So we have to fight it. There's no other way out. That is what cancer is actually all about. So it's been a really fulfilling one, though a rather lengthy one. But all in all, I think everybody who came in here did enjoy it and did get back a lot of information which to take home and see, especially about the do's and the don'ts, how we can prevent what is going to happen. But we can prevent it, we can delay it happening. And of course, what is inevitable will happen. But it's in our hands to try and keep it all at bay as far as we can. We've had a wonderful set of speakers, both Dr. Tapaswini and Dr. Ravi Mehrotra. The insights that they gave us were really wonderful. I mean, we've learned quite a bit out of it. The 2 survivors' stories have been very, very encouraging. And also I could call it a 3rd caregiver's story of Sonam, who spoke from her heart about her mother. I mean, that really touched one. We've had a lot of emotional, journey today that we've all gone through. And I hope we've come out a little wiser and learn to take care of ourselves and our people around us. So, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this second webinar of the series Enigma of Cancer. We look forward to the last one of the series, which is on gynec cancers, next Wednesday on the 23rd, which is Girls, Let's Start Talking. So I hope we'll see many of you there, and much, much more also than the amount that we have seen in the numbers that we witnessed today. The first one was a phenomenal number, which really overwhelmed us. But this time it's been good because we've had a very captive audience. They've not gone away in between. So it's been wonderful. I need to now thank the moderator, Sunita, who's done a wonderful job of it, putting everything together with Sandhya there also. And of course, the office staff, who is always there to help out. We'd had a little problem with Colonel Tomar, whose brother was diagnosed as positive for COVID. So he's in isolation these days on self-quarantine. But I must say the office staff has really played up. Priya, must thank you for having put everything together. Bhagwan Das, Anuj, Priya Tiwari. Without you all, we really would not have known where to go. Because as it is, we are at sea. And of course, the Nargis has been a wonderful release for all of us. You're all going to see it on the website. It's going to be uploaded on the website, and the link will be sent to all of you, because all the people who attended the webinar today would be sent a link for the next webinar also automatically. But yet we would like you all to register. That gives us an indication of the numbers who have come in. So have I left out anyone, Sunita?
The last screen, the fundraising screen.
Yeah, the fundraising screen, of course, is always there. And in fact, we've had Naveen here. We've had Naveen Kshatriya, who's the secretary of the managing, of the trustee of the Board of Trustees in Mumbai. He's been here with us today. A lot of the Bangalore volunteers have been with us, Kanchan and Kishore, and a lot of others. Even from Bombay, from Mumbai, we've had quite a number of participants out there. And of course, our own volunteers have come out in full strength, which is very, very encouraging. Very, very encouraging. So these are the people who have really helped us along the way. I wish we could have got some more. The next webinar will see the release of the brochure, where everybody who has contributed, their names will figure. So please do send in your contributions as quickly, as early as you can. So we await to get a really good chunk at the end of the day after our webinars are over, which will help us take on more patients. Thank you ever so much for being with us. I think we'll call this webinar to an end now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.